Hare Krishna. Welcome to today's reading and Nrsimha prayers. For some reason we had to miss it yesterday, but we are back. So, Namaste Nrsimhaya. Namaste Nrsimhaya. Nrsimha Varato Nrsimha Yato Yato Yamitato Nrsimha Ahir Nrsimha Hridaye Nrsimha Singamadim Sharanam Prapadye Tava Karakamanavare Raka Vakuta Sringa Danita Hiranyakashipu Pranupringa Keshamadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 Raksha Mam. Krishna, 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 Pahi Mam. Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Raksha Mam. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahi Mam. So, you want to start?
Yes. Which page? This page. Okay. At that time, Lord Krishna was sitting on the bedstead of Queen Rukmini. Even from a considerable distance, he could see the Brahmana coming to his home, and he could recognize him as his friend. Lord Krishna immediately left his seat and came forward to receive his Brahmana friend, and upon reaching him, embraced the Brahmana with his two arms. Lord Krishna is the reservoir of all transcendental pleasure, and yet he himself felt great pleasure upon embracing the poor Brahmana, because he was meeting his very dear friend. Lord Krishna had him seated on his own bedstead and personally brought him all kinds of fruits and drinks to offer him, as is proper in receiving a worshipful guest. Lord Shri Krishna is the supreme pure, but because he was playing the role of an ordinary human being, he immediately washed the Brahmana's feet and, for his own purification, sprinkled the water on his head. After this, the Lord smeared the body of the Brahmana with different kinds of scented pulp, such as sandalwood, aguru, and saffron. He immediately burned several kinds of scented incense and, as usual, offered him arti with burning lamps. After thus offering him an adequate welcome, and after the Brahmana had taken food and drink, Lord Krishna said, "My dear friend, it is a great fortune that you have come here." The Brahmana, being very poor, was not dressed nicely. His clothing was torn and dirty, and his body was very lean and thin. He appeared not very clean, and because of his weak body, his bones were distinctly visible. The goddess of fortune, Rukmini Devi, personally began to fan him with the chamara fan, but the other women in the palace were astonished at Lord Krishna's behaviour in receiving the Brahmana in that way. They were surprised to see how eager Lord Krishna was to welcome this particular Brahmana. They wondered how Lord Krishna could personally receive a Brahmana who was poor, not very neat or clean, and poorly dressed. But at the same time, they could realize that the Brahmana was not an ordinary living being. They knew that he must have performed great pious activities, otherwise why was Lord Krishna, the husband of the goddess of fortune, taking so much care for him? They were still more surprised to see that the Brahmana was seated on the bedstead of Lord Krishna. They were especially surprised to see that Lord Krishna had embraced him exactly as he embraced his elder brother, Balaramji, because Lord Krishna used to embrace only Rukmi or Balaram and no one else. After receiving the Brahmana nicely and seating him on his own cushioned bed, Lord Krishna says, "My dear Brahmana friend."
Okay, here it is. You are a most intelligent personality, and you know very well the principles of religious life. I believe that after you finished your education at the house of your teacher, and after you sufficiently remunerated him, you must have gone back to your home and accepted a suitable wife. I know very well that from the beginning you were not at all attached to the materialistic way of life, nor did you desire to be very opulent materially, and therefore you are in need of money. In this material world, persons who are not attached to material opulence are very rarely found. Such unattached persons haven't at least desired to accumulate wealth and prosperity for sense gratification, but sometimes they are found to collect money just to exhibit the exemplary life of a householder. They show how by proper distribution of wealth one can become an ideal householder and at the same time a great devotee. Such ideal householders are to be considered followers of my footsteps. I hope, my dear Brahmana friend, that you remember all those days of our school life when you and I were living together at the boarding house. Actually, whatever knowledge you and I received in my life was accumulated in our student life. If a man is sufficiently educated in student life under the guidance of a proper teacher, his life becomes successful in the future. He can very easily cross over the ocean of nescience, and he is not subject to the influence of illusory energy. My dear friend, everyone should consider his father to be his first teacher, because by the mercy of one's father one gets this body. The father is therefore the natural spiritual master. Our next spiritual master is he who initiates us into transcendental knowledge, and he is to be worshipped as much as I am. The spiritual master may be more than one. The spiritual master who instructs the disciple about spiritual matters is called Shiksha Guru, and the spiritual master who initiates the disciple is called Diksha Guru. Both of them are my representatives. There may be many spiritual masters who instruct, but the initiator spiritual master is one. A human being who takes advantage of these spiritual masters and, receiving proper knowledge from them, crosses the ocean of material existence, is to be understood as having properly utilized his human form of life. He has practical knowledge that the ultimate interest of life, which is to be gained only in this human form, is to achieve spiritual perfection and thus be transferred back home, back to Godhead.
My dear friend, I am Paramatma, the super soul present in everyone's heart, and it is my direct order that human society follow the principles of Varna and Ashram. As I have stated in the Bhagavad Gita, human society should be divided according to quality and action in the 4 Varnas. Similarly, everyone should divide his life into 4 parts. One should utilize the first part of life in becoming a bona fide student, receiving adequate knowledge and keeping oneself in the vow of brahmacharya, so that one may completely devote his life for the service of the spiritual master, without indulging in sense gratification. A brahmachari is meant to lead a life of austerity and penance. A householder is meant to live a regulated life of sense gratification, but no one should remain a householder for the 3rd stage of life. In that stage, one has to return to the austerities and penances formerly practiced in brahmacharya life, and just relieve himself of the attachment to householder life. After being relieved of his attachments into the materialistic way of life, one may accept the order of sannyas. As the super soul of the living entities sitting in everyone's heart, I observe everyone's activity in every stage and order of life, regardless of which stage one is in. When I see that one is engaged seriously and sincerely in discharging the duties ordered by the spiritual master, and is thus dedicating his life to the service of the spiritual master, that person becomes most dear to me. As far as the life of brahmacharya is concerned, if one can continue the life of brahmacharya under the direction of a spiritual master, that is extremely good. But if in brahmacharya life one feels sex impulses, he should take leave of his spiritual master, satisfying him according to the Guru's desire. According to the Vedic system, a gift is offered to the spiritual master which is called Guru Dakshin. Then the disciple should take to householder life and accept a wife according to religious rites. These instructions given by Lord Krsna while talking with his friend and learned Brahmana are very good for the guidance of human society. A system of human civilization that does not promote Varna and Ashram is nothing but a polished animal society. Indulging in sex life by a man or woman living single is never acceptable in human society. A man should strictly follow the principles of brahmacharya life, or, with the permission of the spiritual master, get married. Single life with illicit sex is animal life, for the animals have no such institution as marriage.
Modern society does not aim at fulfilling the mission of human life, which is to go back home, back to Godhead. To fulfill this mission, the system of Varna and Ashram must be followed. When the system is followed rigidly and consciously, it fulfills this mission. But when followed indirectly, without the guidance of superior order, it simply creates a disturbing condition in human society, and there is no peace and prosperity. Krishna continued to talk with his Brahmana friend. My dear friend, I think you remember our activities during the days when we were living as students. You may remember that once we went to collect fuel from the forest on the order of the Guru's wife. While collecting the dried wood, we by chance entered a dense forest and became lost. There was an unexpected dust storm, and when clouds and lightning in the sky, and the explosive sound of thunder. Then sunset came, and we were lost in the dark jungle. After this, there was severe rainfall. The whole ground was overflooded with water, and we could not trace out the way to return to our Guru's ashram. You may remember that heavy rainfall. It was not actually rainfall but a sort of devastation. On account of the dust storm and the heavy rain, we began to feel greatly pained, and in whichever direction we turned, we were bewildered. In that distressed condition, we took each other's hand and tried to find our way out. We passed the whole night in that way, and early in the morning, when our absence became known to our Gurudev, he sent his other disciples to search us out. He also came with them, and when they reached us in the jungle, they found us very distressed. With great compassion, our Gurudev said, "My dear boys, it is very wonderful that you have suffered so much trouble for me. Everyone likes to take care of his body as the first consideration. But you are so good and faithful to your Guru that without caring for bodily comforts, you have taken so much trouble for me. I am also glad to see that bona fide students like you will undergo any kind of trouble for the satisfaction of the spiritual master. That is the way of a bona fide disciple, to become free from his debt to the spiritual master. It is the duty of the disciple to dedicate his life to the service of the spiritual master. My dear best of the twice born, I am greatly pleased by your acts, and I bless you. May all your desires and ambitions be fulfilled. May the understanding of the Vedas, which you have learned from me, always continue to remain within your memory, so that at every moment you can remember
the teachings of the Vedas and quote their instructions without difficulty. Thus you will never be disappointed in this life or the next. Krishna continued, "My dear friend, you may remember that many such incidences occurred while we were in the ashram of our spiritual master. Both of us can realize that without the blessings of the spiritual master, no one can be happy. By the mercy of the spiritual master and by his blessings, one can achieve peace and prosperity and be able to fulfill the mission of human life." On hearing this, the learned Brahmana replied, "My dear Krishna, you are the Supreme Lord and the Supreme Spiritual Master of everyone, and since I was fortunate enough to live with you in the house of our Guru, I think I have nothing more to do in the matter of prescribed duties. My dear Lord, the Vedic hymns, ritualistic ceremonies, religious activities and all other necessities for the perfection of human life, including economic development and sense gratification and liberation, are all derived from one source, your Supreme Personality. All the different processes understanding your personality. In other words, you are the different parts of your transcendental form, and yet you played the role of a student and lived with us in the house of the Guru. This means that you adopted all these pastimes for your pleasure only. Otherwise, there was no need for you playing the role of a human being." Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 79th chapter of Krishna, meeting of Lord Krishna with Sudama Brahmana. Chapter 80, the Brahmana Sudama, blessed by Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the super soul of all living entities, knows very well everyone's heart. He is especially inclined to the Brahmana devotees. Lord Krishna is also called Brahmana Devaya, which means that he is worshipped by the Brahmanas. Therefore, it is understood that a devotee who is fully surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead has already acquired the position of a Brahmana. Without becoming a Brahmana, one cannot reach the Supreme Brahman, Lord Krishna. Krishna is especially concerned with vanquishing the distress of his devotees, and he is the only shelter of the pure devotees. Lord Krishna engaged for a long time in talking with Sudama Vipra about their past association. Then, just to enjoy the company of an old friend, Lord Krishna began to smile and asked, "My dear friend, what have you brought for me? Has your wife given you some nice edible for me?" While addressing his friend, Lord Krishna looked upon him and smiled with great love. He continued, "My dear friend, you must have brought some presentation for me from your home." Lord Krishna knew that Sudama was hesitating to present him the paltry chip rice, which was certainly unfit for his eating. Understanding the mind of Sudama Vipra, the Lord said, "My dear friend, I am certainly not in need of anything, but if
my devotee gives me something as an offering of love, even though it may be very insignificant, I accept it with great pleasure. On the other hand, if a person is not a devotee, even though he may offer me with very valuable things, I do not like to accept them. I actually accept only things offered to me in devotion and love. Otherwise, however valuable a thing may be, I do not accept it. If my pure devotee offers me even the most insignificant things, a little flower, a little piece of leaf, a little water, but saturates the offering in devotion and love, then not only do I gladly accept such an offering, but I eat it with great pleasure." Lord Krishna assured Sudama Vipra that he would be very glad to accept the chipped rice he had brought from home. Yet, out of great shyness, Sudama Vipra hesitated to present it to the Lord. He was thinking, how can I offer such insignificant things to Krishna? And he simply bowed his head. Lord Krishna, the Supersoul, knows everything in everyone's heart. He knows everyone's determination and everyone's want. He knew, therefore, the reason for Sudama Vipra's coming to him. He knew that, driven by extreme poverty, he had come there at the request of his wife. Thinking of Sudama as his very dear class friend, he knew that Sudama's love for him as a friend was never tainted by any desire for material benefit. Krishna thought, Sudama has not come asking anything from me. Being obliged by the request of his wife, he has come to see me just to please her. Lord Krishna therefore decided he would give more material opulence to Sudama Vipra than could be imagined even by the king of heaven. He then snatched the bundle of chipped rice which was hanging out on the shoulder of the poor Brahmana, packed in one corner of his wrapper, and said, "What is this? My dear friend, you have brought me nice, palatable chipped rice." He encouraged Sudama Vipra, saying, "I consider this quantity of chipped rice will satisfy not only me, but the whole creation." It is understood from this statement that Krishna, being the original source of everything, is the root of the entire creation. As watering the root of a tree immediately distributes water to every part of the tree, so an offering made to Krishna, or any action done for Krishna, is to be considered the highest welfare work for everyone, because the benefit of such an offering is distributed throughout the creation. Love for Krishna is distributed to all living entities.
While Lord Krishna was speaking to Sudama Vipra, he ate one morsel of chipped rice from his bundle. And when he attempted to eat a second morsel, Rukmini Devi, the goddess of fortune herself, checked the Lord by catching hold of his hand. After touching the hand of Krishna, Rukmini said, "My dear Lord, this one morsel of chipped rice is sufficient to cause he who offered it to become very opulent in this life and to continue his opulence in the next life. My Lord, you are so kind to your devotee that even this one morsel of chipped rice pleases you very greatly, and your pleasure assures the devotee opulence in both this life and the next. This indicates that when food is offered to the Lord with love and devotion, and he is pleased and accepts it from the devotee, Rukmini Devi, the goddess of fortune, becomes so greatly obliged to the devotee that she has to go personally to the devotee's home to turn it into the most opulent home in the world. If one feeds Narayan sumptuously, the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, automatically becomes a guest in one's house, which means that one's home becomes opulent. The learned Brahmana Sudama passed the night at the house of Lord Krishna, and while there he felt as if he were living in Vaikuntha planet. Actually, he was living in Vaikuntha, because wherever Lord Krishna, the original Narayan, and Rukmini Devi, the goddess of fortune, live, is not different from the spiritual planets, Vaikuntha-loka. The learned Brahmana Sudama did not appear to have received anything substantial from Lord Krishna while at Krishna's palace, yet he did not ask for anything from the Lord. The next morning he started for his home, thinking always about his reception by Krishna, and thus emerged in transcendental bliss. On the way home he simply remembered the dealings of Lord Krishna, and he felt very happy to have seen the Lord. The Brahmana thought, it is most pleasurable to see Lord Krishna, who is most devoted to the Brahmanas. How great a lover he is of the Brahminical culture. He is the supreme Brahman himself, yet he reciprocates with the Brahmanas. He also respects the Brahmanas so much that he embraced to his chest such a poor Brahmana as me, although he never embraces anyone to his chest except the goddess of fortune. How can there be any comparison between me, a poor sinful Brahmana, and the supreme Lord Krishna, who is the only shelter of the goddess of fortune, and yet, considering me a Brahmana, embrace me with heartfelt
with a heartfelt pleasure in his two transcendental arms. Lord Krishna was so kind to me that he allowed me to sit down on the same bedstead where the goddess of fortune lies down. He considered me his real brother. How can I appreciate my obligation to him? When I was tired, Srimati Rukmini Devi, the goddess of fortune, began to fan me, holding the chamara whisk in her own hand. She never considered her exalted position as the first queen of Lord Krishna. I was rendered service by the Supreme Personality of Godhead because of his high regard for the Brahmanas. And by massaging my legs and feeding me with his own hand, he practically worshipped me. Aspiring for elevation to the heavenly planets, liberation, all kinds of material opulence, or perfection in the powers of mystic yoga, everyone throughout the universe worships the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Yet the Lord was so kind to me that he did not give me even a farthing, knowing very well that I am a poverty-stricken man who, if I got some money, might become puffed up and mad after material opulence and so forget him. The statement of the Brahmana Sudama is correct. An ordinary man who is very poor and prays to the Lord for benediction in material opulence, and who somehow or other becomes richer in material opulence, immediately forgets his obligation to the Lord. Therefore, the Lord does not offer opulences to his devotees, unless the devotee is thoroughly destitute. Rather, if a neophyte devotee serves the Lord very sincerely and at the same time wants material opulence, the Lord keeps him from obtaining it. Thinking in this way, the learned Brahmana gradually reached his own home. But there he saw that everything was wonderfully changed. He saw that in place of his cottage, there were big palaces made of valuable stones and jewels, glittering like the sun, moon, and rays of fire. Not only were there big palaces, but at intervals there were beautifully decorated parks, in which many beautiful men and women were strolling. In those parks there were nice lakes full of lotus flowers and beautiful lilies, and there were flocks of multicolored birds. Seeing the wonderful conversion of his native place, the Brahmana began to think to himself, how am I seeing all these changes? Does this place belong to me or to someone else? If it is the same place where I used to live, then how has it so wonderfully changed? While the learned Brahmana was considering this, a group of beautiful men and women with features resembling those of the demigods, accompanied by musical chanters, approached to welcome him. I guess we're pretty much reached the time.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Shri Shri Panchatattva ki jai. Panchatattva darshan. Okay, you cannot zoom here. But darshan is there. Panchatattva is blessing all of you. Thank you for joining us today.
Hare
Oh,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam and all glories to Srila Prabhupada who gave us Srimad Bhagavatam.